We continue in our journey through the story of Jesus as told by Matthew the Apostle. In this portion, we are going to be looking at Matthew chapter 22 and verses 12 to 14. In fact, I'm going to start from verse 11. Reading from Weymouth's translation, chapter 22 and verse 11. Now the king came in to see the guest, and among them he discovered one who was not wearing a wedding robe. My friend, he said, how is it that you came in here without a wedding robe? The man stood speechless. Then the king said to the servants, bind him hand and foot into the darkness outside, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For there are many called, but few are chosen. I don't know if you have noticed this, but in this stage of time, in this moment of time, we live in a very casual age. If you can remember going to church in the 1960s or earlier, I cannot, you will have opinions on how casual some people are. I can think of somebody like my dad, born in the 1920s, who lived well into his 80s, who always went out with a suit jacket and the tie. That was in part a reflection of the cultural age that he came into. Definitely not in step with our more casual sort of age, our more casual look that we have in today's world. There is probably a middle ground between the, hyper need to be dressed to the nine sort of approach and the easy, carefree, casual style today. I suspect, though, even in this day and age of super informality and dress code, it would probably not be appropriate on your first date to wear just anything, or to show up on your first day at work at the new job in just anything. There is a sense in which what we wear speaks of our opinion of what we are doing or of our level of respect for what we are involved in. The sense that we get in this parable and in these verses is that the person missed the memo that it was not casual Friday at the wedding. You get the sense that when the call came to go to the wedding, he was in the midst of cleaning the rain gutters of his house. You know, where you go in and try and get the roots, the leaves, and all the other stuff that accumulates in the eaves trough. The wedding feast that he was called to was held by a king. Notice how that changes things. This was not somebody down the road that you casually knew that if you offended, who cared? This was a wedding put on by the king. In other words, this was time to get out of the closet the best and fanciest clothes. In this culture and in this time, this would not be simply reported as a major fashion faux pas and, on the social page of your local daily newspaper or weekly newspaper, or I guess nowadays in a local blog for your community. This was grounds to kick this man out of the wedding. There has been a revolution in our culture when it comes to sexual ethics. We as a culture want to embrace the idea that there are basically no improper or immoral expressions of sexuality. One of the ways that you make this possible is you repackage sex. It is no longer sex, it is love. If you make any form of sexual expression an act of love, how could it be wrong? For it is love. You see, if we call it love, it cannot be wrong. The problem in all of this, of course, is that while we can legalize what is immoral, we cannot wipe away the guilt and the shame that comes with inappropriate sexual conduct. And we cannot wipe away the debilitating nature of sexual sin, which enslaves and entraps people. The abuse and misuse of human sexuality has devastating consequences. We know that because we constantly hear stories of people who have been abused as children. We think of people who in jobs have been, cornered by perverts and worse. This is devastating stuff. Sin is not just about what is right and wrong. Sin is far more about the fact that there is not the freedom to live out the way we want. The reality of sin is that there is a sense in which life has to be lived on certain terms and in certain ways. And that if we want to function as a people and as a society and as a culture, we must respect that reality. Human personality and human society only flourish as we live in ways that respect the rules. It can be morals or it can be clothes and a whole lot more. You see, what is fashionable may change with the generations, but what is true and right remains fixed for all eternity. If we are to overcome this world by faith, we need to ignore what is fashionable. To be Christian in every generation is to grasp and hold on to something permanent and transcendent of time and space. This person was thrown out of the wedding for he was too fixated on the here and now. The life of faith is always a call to what is old and what is out of step with the world of our day. It is never fashionable to embrace the call of discipleship and take up our cross. If we want to enter into that great messianic feast at the end of the ages, then we need to eschew the fashionable